All right, at 7 p.m. It is Monday, July 15th, 2019. If I could please get everyone to please silence your cell phones and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Frederick.
Here.
Councilmember Morse.
Here.
Councilmember Plaza. Councilmember Graham. Councilmember Chapman.
Here.
Councilmember Benjamin.
Here.
Councilmember Humbert.
Here.
All right, council members Graham and Plaza have called in this evening. Chair accept a motion to excuse both of them.
Move to excuse. Second.
Moved by Councilmember Humbert, seconded by Councilmember Rounds. Will the clerk please take the vote?
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Frederick.
Aye.
Councilmember Humbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Benjamin.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
All right, both council members have been excused. Moving on to citizen communications for items not on the agenda. First up, we have Mr. Elba Benzler. If I can please get you to step forward to the mic here. State your name and address, and I will give you 5 minutes to address council.
Name's L.B. Benzler, address 29603 Northeast 194th Avenue, Yakult, Washington 98675. Phone number is 360-852-4189. Thanks for giving me an opportunity here to speak to you tonight. Enough is enough was the word spoken by Mayor Finn in an article in the Reflector this last week. I'd like to apologize on behalf of myself and all involved with the Blooms of Bruce Marathon for any lack of respect or courtesy we have shown to the city of Woodland and business owners and residents. We have somehow let you down, and I'm asking for a chance to make it right. It was brought to our attention that roads were not authorized, were shut down. Please help us here and help us understand what roads were shut down that were not authorized. Traffic control plans were not followed. We are not sure of what traffic control plans were not followed. Our crew has been working the courses out there since 2015, so they're not new to it. They've been doing what they've done all along, so we're a little confused on these words. Clean up at the park. We hire youth to come out after we've put all the equipment away to go through and just look for anything, any sort of garbage, zip ties, any things of these natures in the grass to be picked up. Power Rents did, in fact, leave their equipment behind. They did write an apology letter to Mayor Finn and the city for the equipment being left behind, and I'd like to be able to submit that letter tonight showing their apologies. You know, there's an extra $600 that was spent by the city for hosting the event. I'd like to be able to sit down and discuss this if we could to see what we could do to remove these additional costs so the city's not being impacted by it. This is also, there's so many positive impacts this event brings to Woodland. I'd like to go over some of them, but there's so many I can't go over all of them. First thing, we do give back to the city. We have given Rotary $6,000. I thought it was $7,000, but after doing the numbers, I do have copies of checks that were written to Rotary and cashed. I'd like to submit those as well. We've changed directions a couple years ago on our giving. Instead of giving to Rotary, we were looking for more help with our marathon because it takes a lot of volunteers, and we started giving to the youth. And so the youth that we started giving to in Woodland, Clark County and Cowlitz County was Woodland Dance, Band, Soccer, Clark County Explorers, ROTC, Fire Cadets, Young Marines, Cross Country, and this year we had Mrs. and Miss Washington come in out, and they handed out tiaras at the finish line to all the female finishers who crossed the finish line. Since we had made this, it's our 5-year anniversary, we made it a royal celebration, and it fit very nicely. This event has brought in 38 states and 7 countries, which brings a positive economical impact to Woodland businesses. This event fills hotels in Woodland, among with Airbnbs, RV parks, and local friends and families have people who come out and stay with them so that they can be a part of this event. We do put heads on beds. Local businesses see an increase in revenue. AMPM owner Tina said she's seen an additional $1,500 coming in the weekend of the Blooms to Brews event. And other businesses as well feel the impact economically. Coffee shops, grocery stores, gas stations, restaurants, and so much more. We have many local businesses that sponsor this event as well. The Fat Moose, Luckman Coffee, West Coast Training, AMPM, Waltz Meat, and this year Holland American Flower Gardens sponsored our photo booth for us. We were able to track how many people from Woodland participate in this event, and overall in 2018, 3.3% of the participants were from Woodland. Last year, it was 5.9%, and the sign-ups we started taking at the event in April of this year, we have 23.1% are from Woodland who signed up for 2020. We put out a petition, and it says, keep the Blooms to Brews Marathon in Woodland. It has, at this moment, over 890 sign-ups since July 10th. That was 5 days ago. There are hundreds of comments in there, and I'd encourage all of you to please look at them. You know, I asked them, just tell your story. You know, why is this event so important to you? You know, what took place that makes you feel like you'd like to see this remain in Woodland? So this last year, we added a 5K. We never offered a 5K before because the Tulip Farm did a tulip trot, and out of respect. We had some Down syndrome kids out there, but we had a 16-year-old kid, Parker Owen from Woodland, who set the course record of 18 minutes and 49 seconds. He's here with us tonight, and him and I had a fun conversation after he had crossed the finish line, and he says he's looking forward to coming out in 2020 because he wants to set the new course record for the 10K.
I'm going to stop you there, Mr. Bensler. You've hit your 5 minutes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Kim Neen or Mean? Mine. I'll have you step forward, state your name and address, and I'll give you 5 minutes as well.
My name is Kimberley 9. My address is 123 Alki Road, Woodland, Washington, 98674. I'm a resident of Woodland, Washington. My family and I have lived here now for 14 years. We have 3 children, 2 older boys that graduated from Woodland High School, and then our daughter is going to be a junior next year, so she too will be graduating. We love Woodland and the small town, but we enjoy seeing the growth. We've got the new high school, we've got a Walmart, and I know we've got a couple other Carl's Jr.'s come in. I know we've got the Dutch Brothers coming in now. So Woodland is starting to grow, and I know that it's a good thing. I know my husband and I, we first moved here because we were tired of the city and we wanted something a little bit smaller, but it's still nice to have a little bit of growth. Everybody needs change and we need growth. So it's nice to see that the Blooms to Brews event can come in and bring a little bit of growth to our family here in Woodland. And some people come here because they enjoy the hospitality that they receive from us. Some people come here because they want to see the tulips or the lilacs or take a hike up to Mount St. Helens. So I really see the impact and the good part of having the marathon here for that one weekend a year in April. I know that the hotels fill up and restaurants and grocery stores. I worked at AMPM, so I saw the impact that we had during the time. We always had lots of customers coming in. I also know friends that work at Safeway, and I know one of the managers there, Marie, and she says they're always that weekend. None of the employees get that weekend off. They all have to work because they're so busy because they have so many people coming in. So I see a big impact of having the marathon here, and I hope that you guys can work with the staff to hopefully get it back for 2020, because I think it would be a good positive thing to have here in Woodland. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Merrill? And how do you pronounce your last name? Cray. I'll give you 5 minutes as well, if I can get you to state your name and address.
Marille Cray, 7716 Southeast Middleway in Vancouver. I didn't plan to speak today, but since I drove up here, I might as well support this great event. It's not just about running or walking. If it was, all the people that showed up would have just stayed home. It was to come up to be in a community event, run and walk with friends and family. And people were in such a high. When I came up with a lot of friends, and we're already talking about we want to come up again. And I came up to it because people told me how wonderful it was. In fact, that was the first time I saw the flowers, and so I brought friends up the following day because it really was stunning. And so it's just a spot-on event, and I'm a little concerned that the race directors haven't been provided all the information to really show the council and given the opportunity to fix any concerns the council may have. I've been a race director myself, and it's a job of love, but you can get, it's a tough job, and people always complain, but if I was the race director, I would definitely want the opportunity to see the complaints. You don't need the name, you just need to know what the issues are and give them the opportunity to fix them. And I don't know if these are complaints that you've received before, but I think if the local people have some concerns, invite them to the table and see if you can address them together as a community. But it's really a great event, and people were just so excited, in such a good mood after participating. I guess you have to do it to understand. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Pat Martin.
I'm Pat Martin, 2621 Cascade Way, Longview, Washington. So I came a little bit of ways. I've participated in the race from its inception. I've also done races all over the world, and I know what a big deal it is to have a Boston qualifier in a town this size, or even in the state of Washington. So that's a big draw for this race internationally, and that's what makes it important. And it puts Woodland on the map, which is darn hard to do. I'm also involved with Tour de Blast race, the bicycle race up Mount St. Helens, and I know what it is to organize something like this and be rewarded by people coming from a long ways away, even other places in the world, and being thrilled at what they've seen and what they've done, and possibly coming back. A couple of other reasons that you might want to work with our race director and be sure that we do have Blooms to Brews in 2020 is the benefits, as Elba mentioned, to some of the local groups. This puts Woodland on the map. It showcases your local economy, your local volunteers. He's talked over and over about how many teenagers and young people are involved in this. And as a former teacher, I understand how important that is. And there's kids everywhere. They participate in the race, in the relay part of the race, because there's a distance for everyone, even a little old lady like me, so they can participate as well. And they're volunteering, which is, it's never too young for kids to learn to volunteer, but they have to have something meaningful to do. The as we've talked about before, the out-of-towners come in and buy things, they stay here, and they walk away saying good things about Woodland, Washington. You're not going to believe what I did in Woodland, Washington. And just as she mentioned, people come back the next day or the next week, and they bring their friends, and that results in more money being spent. Also, there's another unique feature of this race. It honors our veterans. It honors our service members. There's a special part of the race about that. Maybe you're not aware of that, but that, I think, is extremely important, especially in our society today. There's local vendors out there that make some money on their own, in addition to the businesses that are already in town. Those are all local. And last thing is health benefits. We're all looking to be healthier and live longer and live good lives. And to do that, you have to move. And so this gives us an opportunity to participate with friends and family and other like-minded people to improve ourselves. And I just hope that you will allow yourselves to work with Elba and the rest of the staff to find out a little bit more about this. And if you're don't happen to be runners, you may not know all these benefits, and so I hope that you will learn more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is it David Vorstein? Vorse? Have you step forward? Please state your name and address, and I'll give you 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is David Vorse. I'm here tonight representing the Cowlitz Valley Runners. My address is 504 2nd Avenue Southwest in Castle Rock, Washington, 98611. I do have a letter that I'd like to leave you. I don't know if it's according to address.
Yeah. Do you have a copy for everyone? Just oh, perfect. All right, we'll pass them down.
The Cowlitz Valley Runners is an organization whose mission is to promote running as a part of a healthy lifestyle. We applaud the organization and the City of Woodland when they announced the Blooms to Brew half marathon that eventually led to the full marathon. There is no event like it in Cowlitz County. So needless to say, we were saddened to hear that it may not continue. We heard of some of the challenges and concerns the city is faced with and do not take them lightly. Many of you know that I'm also a public works director, and so I understand what may be happening, and so we do not take that lightly. We encourage the city to give the organizers an opportunity to hear what the complaints are and offer a way to make it right. While no one can change the past, we can find a way to make it doable in the future. Certainly, if cities like Seattle can do it, Woodland should be able to find a way. We ask that the city council or city manager sit down with the organizer and try to work it out. The Cowlitz Valley Runner, who has been have directed races for over 40 years. We've been involved in every kind of race, from obstacle, from 1 miles to marathons. And we are willing to come sit at the table and try to offer some practical solutions to what the issues may be. We understand there is a possibility that this event may not be able to go forward, that the issues may not be able to be overcome. But I do feel that you owe it to the business owners and the citizens of Woodland to try. And this is good for the physical and social health of your community. It is also good for the city's economic health of this event, as it does put Woodland on the international map. And again, that's a big thing for your city and for Cowlitz County. So thank you for the opportunity to speak. And again, we are willing to come and sit at the table and help with some resolutions if possible.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Perry.
I'm not going to speak to that, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Grout. Mary Grout. Please state your name and address, and I'll give you 5 minutes.
My name is Mary Grout, 3712 Northwest Sandpiper Drive, Woodland, Washington. So I'm a Woodland resident, and this is the first year that I had participated in the festival, and I ran the 5K, and my 2 grown children and their boyfriend and girlfriend also joined me. So we had a group of 5 people running in the race, and it was so much fun. We just loved seeing all the families out there, all the young children, a lot of moms and dads pushing jogging strollers. It was such a great community building event, and it was promoting such a wonderful, healthy lifestyle for everyone. I love how the fact that the festival does bring in a lot of money to the businesses here in Woodland. I think that's really important. I know I myself spent a lot more money here during that weekend, just having the family come in. And I think it's great that the festival is also supporting these youth groups and donating to those charities as well. As someone else had mentioned, we bring people back. People keep coming back to Woodland for other things like the lilacs or the tulip bulbs, whatever. And as a participant, I thought the race was very well organized. It started on time and ended on time. The night before we picked up our packages, that ran very smoothly. And to see how smoothly and organized and efficient it was running, I can only believe that if there are other issues that have to be addressed, that the festival organizers would find a way to help help address those issues. So as a Woodland resident, I'd love to see this festival here, and I really hope we have more festivals like it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got no one else signed up for items not on the agenda. If you failed to do so at the beginning of the meeting, now is your opportunity to step forward. You'll have 5 minutes. Please state your name and address.
My name is Karen King. It's 29604 Northeast 194th Avenue. I have known, I'll be the race director for almost 10 years. When I first met him, I'm like, oh my God, you know what? You're way too much for me. I'm this introverted person that you're coming across like way too hard and fast for me. And I don't even know how to take you. And when he's passionate and for something, he gives it his heart. And he comes across just like a freaking train. And I love that, and I can hate that at the same time. And I'm like, whoa, slow down. Just really think about how you're putting this across, because sometimes your passion sounds like you're a jerk. You're coming across to me as a big old jerk. And you've got to stop it. Really think about what you want and how it's going to come across, because you can come across as somebody that people can't understand. And so it's kind of like this marathon. When we first started it back in 2013, it was my idea of somebody else's plan. And I'm like, let's do this. And so I started in on it, and after a while he's like, nope, you're not doing it right. You're not doing it right. We got to do it better. We got to do it more. We got to do it more passionate. We got to keep it this. And I'm like, keep it simple. Keep it simple. He's like, oh, no, this is going to be fun. We're going to do a suit. We're going to do this. We're going to do bold babes. We're going to do all of this stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God, I can't deal with this. We really have to figure this out. And so it's kind of like we've had a child for 7 years. 7 years we've had this child. And all of a sudden, one day, they said, you know what? This child is not with you anymore. We're taking it from you. It's done. It's just done. And to look at each other and go, what did we do? We don't make a living off of this. We both have full-time jobs. And we come in hard and fast going, okay, we got to get this right. We've got to do this. And we want to make this difference. We love seeing the passion on our runners' faces coming across. That's what fulfills us. It's not the money. We don't make a paycheck from this. We don't. And he goes off the grid for 2 months prior to this event. This is all he does. He can't even run. He can't even do anything after his job. This is what he does. And so if this is at all personal for some of the ways that maybe we have been perceived, then I'm sorry. I am incredibly sorry. I don't ever want it to be like that, because it's not like that for us. It's a passion. And we're runners ourselves, triathlons. I've done an Ironman. I know what it takes. And I am passionate about this too, but I'm the introverted person to sit there and go, for me to talk tonight, that's big. I don't do this, but I am invested in this. And I would truly hope that if this was something personal towards our organization, that we can look at all the good that it has to give to everybody, all our runners, the community as a whole, and say, let's put our differences aside and work together as a community to bring this event together and make it something amazing, because I feel like we have not had the support of Woodland to say, hey, guys, we're going to come out for the event. We're going to help you do this. We're going to help advertise it for you. Let's all work together and make this thing just amazing. We can do that. Just one little side thing that I just noticed was that Penticton Ironman was an Ironman event for 20 years in Penticton. They decided not to renew their contract, and they went to Whistler. Right now, they're trying and begging Ironman to come back because they missed him so much. It wasn't the revenue, it was the excitement of the town, it was the excitement of the people, it was the excitement of we're bringing this, and it's fun, it's exciting, and I would love nothing better than that. I really would love to get along and make this thing just amazing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else for items not on the agenda? Now's your opportunity to step forward. Please state your name and address.
My name is John Weaver at 870 West Lookout Ridge, Washougal, Washington. I've run this race every year. Well, that's not true. I had to walk it because I broke my collarbone this last year, but I was here. I would just hope that this stays here. This is a very good course. It's a very nice, it's a beautiful area to be in. I think it's something that not only speaks well for the community, but it also speaks well for the running environment. If this doesn't happen here, I would hope that we can find someplace else to have it, but I think it would be a loss to move it to another area. And I think it would be a big loss to the city and to the county. I know that I run with a couple of different clubs in Vancouver. Vancouver Run, Chug, and Grub, and Clark County Running Club. There's 2 or 3 in Battleground there's a number, there's at least a good half a dozen different clubs around Clark County that all come up and participate. So it's something we would really hate to see not continue. And I know Elby well enough that he would sit down and discuss the issues. I know that you can come to a solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for items not on the agenda? Yep, please step forward. Please state your name and address.
My name is Ted Welty. My address is 2323 Southeast Harrison Street, number 34 in Milwaukee, Oregon.
Can I get you to spell your last name for me, please?
Welty.
Perfect.
Obviously, I am not a runner, and yet Elby and Karen have been 2 of the most inspirational people I have ever met. I have volunteered with this marathon and this event for 3 years now, and I really look forward to the time coming up here. They are amazing. The entire team of people that they gather here is amazing. The fact that they bring in people from all over the country and internationally, I think, is something Woodland really needs to look at seriously in keeping in this town. It's the only reason I ever come to Woodland, Washington, and I would like to continue doing that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing no one else. Moving on to items on the agenda. First up, we have Ms. Erin Thani. Just step forward. I believe you've given us a handout already as well.
Yes, I have. The first page is a letter. There's also a map and an ordinance from 2010. My name is Erin Thani. I own property on Davidson Avenue and on Gary Road. So what's the status of the infrastructure study? It's been almost 4 years since my family met with the mayor, Rob Van Der Zand, and Jennifer Keene and Dennis Ripp regarding the sewer, water, and road issues on my family's property in the industrial area. We were told we couldn't do anything with the 3 acres that had existing buildings that we wanted to lease, even for pipe storage, without putting in all the infrastructure from Davidson and Guile to Caples. We were told many things in this meeting, but was clearly expressed to everyone in the group is that if we could financially put in all the infrastructure, which we couldn't, the city of Woodland did not know if any of the existing sewer lines that would extend to our property from the north or east through the town to the sewer plant had any available capacity to site anything that would add any additional sewer to these lines. So the result of this meeting, which has happened now almost 4 years ago, was the infrastructure study for the Southwest Industrial Area. I understand that the study is finally in progress, but now it appears that the study may no longer be needed as the city is going to be allowing developments without the study. When our property was annexed in 2010, we, the applicants, had to pay for a transportation study. The City Council unanimously approved the study in a resolution to create an ordinance approving the general location of future roads in the area, which would provide a better solution for a potential problem intersection on the west side of the Davidson Avenue Railroad crossing. Unfortunately, this signed ordinance has been completely ignored, misplaced, and never referred to in any comprehensive plan updates or recent transportation plan, despite my multiple attempts in physically giving copies to the City of Woodland staff, Planning Commission, and consultants, including coming to open houses and physically giving them another copy of this ordinance, which has been completely ignored since its inception. They always act so surprised when they receive a copy of it and state, "Oh, we've never seen this before, and yes, we will fix this." None of this ever happens. Now I've been told that new developments in the Southwest Industrial Area are in the works, and that whomever dedicates the roadway space in the industrial area will determine where the roads go, quote unquote. This is in direct conflict with which is what was determined with the 2010 transportation study when we were annexed. It makes part of this infrastructure study for the Southwest Industrial Area moot and pointless. I have been shown a transportation plan done last year, which includes our property, that further creates a dangerous intersection on the west side of the Davidson Avenue Railroad crossing and unwisely puts the road directly adjacent to the railroad tracks, which I expressly disagreed with the current staff. The 2010 plan was a much better plan. The new plan puts a road over our planned stormwater runoff area for our property, but more importantly, it puts it over a massive gas and fiber optic line and is just too dangerously close to the Davidson Avenue Railroad crossing in general. The major result of this flawed transportation plan is that it sets up a perfect scenario to close the Davidson Avenue Railroad crossing, as it will become a more dangerous intersection with cars and trucks that will need to stop on top of the railroad crossing, waiting for the North Beacon traffic to clear before proceeding west onto Gary Road. To be clear, what I have been told is the plan is to completely close the Davidson Avenue Railroad crossing. If the Davidson Avenue Railroad crossing is closed, it will kill downtown Woodland. There is no direct connecting road between Scott and Davidson Avenue on the east side of the railroad, except for Pacific Avenue, which is already stressed. And there are only two connections on the east side between Wayland and Davidson because of the lake, and they are South Pecan through residential area and Lakeshore Drive. Both Lakeshore to the north and Pacific to the Both Lakeshore to the south and Pacific Avenue to the north funnel directly to the highway intersection and would add so much additional traffic to an already stressed interstate intersection. In addition, all efforts and taxpayers' monies in previous studies and revitalization attempts to restore the downtown area over the decades will be worthless if you cut it off and you can't get to it. I do need to tell the new people in town that the Dyke Access Road interchange does flood and will flood again at some point in time. This whole plan is very short-sighted. So why continue with the infrastructure study? It appears that it may not be needed since the city of Woodland is going ahead with new developments without it. Evidently, the sewer capacity in the existing lines is suddenly available, yet it wasn't available 4 years ago. Nothing that I know has changed. And the roads are going to be dictated by the new developers who don't live here but get to say where the roads go because they dedicate them. I also understand that the port has been having problems with the road planning also with the city in their roads for their planned development. Any infrastructure development on the Southwest Industrial Area must have a safe intersection with road development on the west side of Davidson Avenue Railroad crossing. And when creating a new road between Caples and Wayland, it must be away from the railroad tracks, yet not to create a reason to close the Davidson Avenue Railroad crossing in the future, so that the downtown Woodland area is accessible from many directions and is not adversely affected for the benefit of the entire community. When we met with the city staff, the mayor agreed to have an advisory group for property owners in the Southwest Industrial Area and the port to communicate and to work on the infrastructure study. I have not seen any type of communications regarding this advisory group, and I do not believe that any other landowners nor the port has either. The infrastructure study needs to continue, in my opinion, for proper planning, but not for another 4 years. Yet, this must have the involvement of the longtime landowners and the port of Woodland, which I do not believe has happened. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Keller.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Keller. The address is P.O. Box 805 in Woodland. Some of you might know me, some of you might not. I've worked for the city for 15 years, currently hold the position of sergeant for the Woodland Police Department. I'm up here requesting that the city council move forward, putting the levy lid lift up for vote. The last newly created position for the Woodland Police Department was in 2007, and that added a 10th position to our department. In 2007, the U.S. Census Bureau showed the population of the city was 5,135, and in 2017, it was 6,138. This means, doing the math, the average growth in the city of Woodland is 100 residents per year. putting the population roughly about 6,300 currently. In 2015, our staffing went down to 8 personnel. We hired a 9th body, and the city council requested an assessment from then Chief Crochet to fill the 10th position. Chief Crochet did the assessment based on the population and also based on the crime rate, showing not only should the department be at a staffing of 10, but we should actually be at 14. Interim Police Administrator Gary Lucas later advised City Council that that number was off and we should actually be at a staffing of 16 and not 14. Just to give you some information, the City of Ridgefield, who has a crime rate 40% lower than the national average, is currently adding 1 officer per year for the next 5 years just to keep up with their growth rates. The City of Woodland crime rate is 156% higher than the national average. If you look at the population increases, the average national household income population is 2.5 per resident. We are currently under construction or about to construct a total of 66 homes in this year and beginning of 2020, which would add 165 residents by themselves. If the housing development goes in north of North Fork Elementary, which is the old Woodland Intermediate School, this would increase the population by another 345 residents, adding over 600 residents between the two. The current staff of 10 was based on the population and crime rate from 12 years ago. Again, the crime rate has increased as well as the population has increased by 1,200 people. I am not only looking out for the citizens, which is my job, I'm looking out for my guys. It's an officer safety issue, you guys and gals. We have had several incidents in the last couple rotations that I've worked where we've been on priority calls and we've had to call in Kalama and we've had to call in the sheriff's office to cover the other priority calls for us because we don't have the staffing and we're on these priority incidents. I'm a city employee, I'm a city resident, and a city taxpayer. This levy lid lift will affect how much I have to pay, and you better believe I'm going to vote for it to make sure that the citizens are safe and make sure my guys are safe. So I just encourage that you put it forward for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Thank you. And just for the record, Mr. Keller is here on his own time and not city time. Yeah. And Mr. Keller, are you able to send a copy of that via email or leave that with the clerk for us, please? Thank you. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Miss Deanna Holland? Step forward, state your name and address in 5 minutes.
Hi, Deanna Holland, 252 Cedar, Woodland, Washington. I'm actually here in the capacity as the Woodland Action Board President and representing the 111 people experiencing homelessness right now in Woodland. I am here to talk about your ordinance 1435, and that's on tonight's agenda in regards to public camping. So I'm pretty sure whoever created your ordinance probably is already aware that this has been tried multiple times in the state of Washington. The 9th Circuit Court of Appeals just had a ruling on this, but just the highlights. So a few years ago, there was the case of Bell versus Boise, and it was regarding homelessness and people camping in public. So the Department of Justice had their opinion in regards to that, and the laws criminalizing camping or sleeping outdoors are unconstitutional when there is either inadequate shelter space for a city's homeless population or shelter restrictions preventing certain individuals from accessing shelters. Well, we all know Woodland doesn't have any shelters available. So at the Woodland Action Center, what we can do is we can refer people to other resources. So there are limited shelter spaces available in Vancouver and in Longview. So folks here have the option of staying in their vehicles or in tents and tarps that we provide them, which actually, a couple of years ago, the City of Woodland council members voted to give us emergency supply funds, which actually provided those tents and tarps for our unsheltered clients. Later on, let's see, City of North Bend versus Joseph Bradshaw. That is another one where similar case, makes it impossible for homeless persons to live within the city because we have no shelter for them. So they have to sleep in a tent. And so your ordinance says we can't have people sleeping in tents. We also can't have them using camping paraphernalia, which that came up in a case where somebody sued the city of Everett. So there's a lot of different issues with the crisis of homelessness, but it all kind of boils down to everybody has a basic human need to sleep. Everybody has a basic human need to eliminate waste from their body. And in Woodland, we have one public bathroom. So if somebody's on the other side of town and they need a restroom and they're not allowed in any place of business, they're going to find the nearest place as a restroom, and that might be behind a building or in the shrubbery. So anyway, my thought on this is if we're going to have a city ordinance outlawing people sleeping outside when they have no other place to go, that maybe we look at an option of bringing a navigation center in for our unsheltered folks here in town. Right now, Woodland Action Center is up, so that happens every July. So our numbers may change. Sometimes they go up, sometimes they go down. But in January, we participate in the point in time count, which we give that information is passed on to the Department of Commerce so that they can better assess the level of need in each parts of the state. So, like I said, last year I think we had right at 125 people in January. Right now we have 111 people experiencing homelessness in Woodland. So I think everybody knows where to find me at woodlandactioncenter.org. Click the communication button. You can email me there. If you'd like to discuss some options for folks that are experiencing homelessness here. But I would just kind of advise everybody to take a little step back and maybe look at some of the case law that's already happened before creating an ordinance that criminalizes a basic human right of sleep. So anyway, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else for items on the agenda who failed to sign up at the beginning of the meeting? Now's your opportunity to step forward. All right, seeing no one else. Chair, before agenda approval, there's a few items that I would like pulled by council if possible. Action item O, ordinance number 1434. Action item P, ordinance number 1435. And additionally, I would like action item H pulled, which is resolution number 710, the Transportation Improvement Plan, for further consideration. In order for that to happen, though, council would have to have a special meeting before the end of the month to have it reconsidered. I believe that staff needs to, and myself, need to sit down and have a further conversation and maybe even bring Ms. Thani in on that, or maybe some of the landowners out there to make sure that we are moving forward in the proper direction here. Today's the 15th. That special meeting would have to be held on the 22nd or the 29th.
Question?
Mr. Fredericks.
Does that also mean a delay of the public hearing on resolution number 710?
I guess that's exactly what that would, well, yes, that's what I'm asking for, unless there's folks that would like to step forward and speak to what is on the agenda this evening, and then potentially come back on the 22nd or 29th, whatever is decided.
Move to approve the agenda with the exception of action item H, O, and P. Forgo the resolution number 710 public hearing and refer H to its own meeting scheduled for July 22nd.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Rounds. Motion on the floor. Delay action item H to July 22nd, special meeting. Action item O and P also removed this evening, and foregoing the public hearing on Resolution 710. Will the clerk please take the vote?
Councilmember Benjamin?
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Aye.
Councilmember Humbert?
Aye.
All right, the agenda has been approved, 5-0. At this time, I'd like to take a 10-minute break at 7:46. Okay, so this isn't happening.
I didn't realize this much of the month has gone already. We just got back last week, so.
All afternoon.
What's that? Is that would be next Monday? Yes. Normally we would move it to the 5th Monday, but 22nd works. Give us a week. Okay, what is this one? Let's see, I'm gonna make sure all this gets in there. Comments.
Anything you need me to prepare?
Okay, so I want to go over the city maps. What constitutes a city? What was going on with the houses around where they're trying to annex them down?
Okay.
And kind of get a feel for what the rules are right now.
I think I'll tell her that.
Okay. And then
See how well that goes over.
about this going.
Okay. So, this is probably a good conversation because we're going to have 5 new planning commission members. Maybe should I just add it to the agenda for?
Yeah, but you're not going to get through that. I just sat with Pete this afternoon and it was an hour and a half. So if they want that, that's fine, but I know I need that before we start on
Okay.
Thursday, okay?
All right.
Okay, thanks.
See ya.
Mrs. Johnson. Alex, how's it going? Good, how are you? Good, sorry. I didn't even have change. I didn't have time to put my nice clothes on tonight. Like, I was like darting out of the house. It's still a mess up there too, so, yeah.
Where were you? You were on vacation?
I've been on vacation. All over. West reports and well, yeah, with Ashley. I was in the full city. Yeah, Belford, basketball. So I'll go there this year. Others? No, I'm not. I've got 25. I just ran away from you. What's that? Give me 1 second. Okay, so when we go through it all, or when I go to the report, I'll ask them because they pull it. You said
So basically,
I was wondering.
I said no sirens.
They did it. It was just lights.
No, just lights. I don't need a big kitty. Yeah, just come check everything out. It was air conditioned. Yeah, it's just one thing. My own business. I wasn't back out. I was actually in the president for Yes. We have a few notes on there. It looks like they're easy. If you have any questions,
and I guess just for your reference, it's not a big deal. It was. I didn't we weren't sure if like policy is there something I didn't even so it's not, it's all good. So if I'm usually my interesting, they say, is there any second?
I had people a few years ago say, "Oh, access to everything's so I'll get you some more.
We're fixing it now. So
all right, I'm sorry about that. Wednesday's my day. If not, you can get a hold of it.
Once in a while, that one cell takes
Did we go at 46? I think it was 46. All right, got 2 minutes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes, without.
Yeah.
Well, you can always, we're going to have a chat. Usually we don't, we'll set a speedometer. We always feel like, oh, I should do this. It's not part of it. So we're looking at a speedometer. So,
thought that you guys would know about it.
Is it still like new with him, like if you take the motion? There's a way that you should be able, like especially after you or something like that. You should. Well, here we go. Let's ask Sergeant Keller. Sergeant Keller, if you were to stop a vehicle for speeding, she's got attitude. And she's. Oh, jeez. If you stop someone for speeding, they say, and you say, "Oh, you were doing 10 over." It's like, no, it wasn't. My GPS said I was on those 500. But the speedometer said, yeah. I said the speedometer is part of the game.
Ways.
Well, exactly.
Oh gosh. Good job.
I know, me too.
We're extending the. I don't know how long, but we got to extend. We've got Robert Ray that signed up as of right now.
Yeah, it's more. Yeah. Is this hers? Oh, I did. You were good. She has it good.
Thank you.
She should have some. You guys never answered conference call.
All right, we are back in session. The public meeting this evening has been moved to July 22nd. Moving on to reports of standing committees. Did I say it was 7:56 when we started? Moving on to reports of standing committees. Finance and General Government. Mr. Fredericks.
Yes, we met on July 8th. That was last Monday. We discussed the Horseshoe Lake Committee, which is scheduled for a workshop and possible action on item Q. In addition, we talked about the open gov budgeting suite purchase. That was referred to council with the due pass recommendation. It is item E on the agenda tonight. We also discussed resolution number 712, which is the advanced travel per diem. That was referred to council with the due pass recommendation 2-0. That's item G on tonight's agenda. Legal newspaper of record, we discussed that as well. We recommended that the award legal newspaper of record to the Reflector. That was referred to council with a 2-0 vote. That's action item D. Ordinance number 1431, which is the school impact fees. I don't believe that's on the agenda tonight, is it?
I think so.
I think that will be continued, but that was referred to council 2-0 as well. We adjourned the meeting at 6:56, and our next meeting is scheduled for August 12th, 5:30 at City Hall.
Questions for Mr. Fredericks? All right, chamber report. Mrs. Rance, have you been making it to the meeting? Or are you back in action yet?
Just barely, so
Okay.
I don't know too much about what's going on.
Did you make it this past Tuesday?
Yes.
Can you give us a report? Since Mrs. Graham is not here, she's throwing you under the bus right now.
I was trying to think who spoke. Oh, yes, Pete did.
Yeah.
Levy left.
No,
apparently it was really memorable.
Yes. No, it took me a minute to think of what it was.
Would you like Mr. Boyce to give the report?
Him and Chief Kelly actually
Oh,
talked.
ouch. Ouch.
And
Ooh.
so they did a very good job, and there was a lot of good questions from
Good.
people at the chamber meeting, so
Good.
it was very well attended.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, moving on to, we'll just stop there and move
Yeah.
on. Reports of officers. We've already discussed Ms. Thani's email this evening, and she got up and spoke. Thank you for coming out this evening and speaking to that. And we'll have some more discussion, and we'll be bringing that back on the 22nd. We still have a planning commission vacancy that is out there. The ad is due to close on the 31st. We've received one additional application for that. At this time, I would like to recognize Mr. Benjamin for all his contributions to council. I'm talking to you, referring to your email. Mr. Benjamin, this will be his last meeting this evening. He has given his formal resignation and will be leaving council. So we'll have paperwork out there with an ad for an appointment to his position. So we thank you for your time and your contributions to the council. I know it's been a struggle at times with your schedule, so but we appreciate everything you've given to us. Thank you very much. Mr. Boyce.
Can I
ask
a
you want a
question?
Oh, mayor question, yes.
So we have.
I wasn't taking questions.
Okay, well,
Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Frederick.
We received Mrs. Thani's letter here. Is it possible, and I know you're going to be providing one, but she's raised some concerns with ordinances that have been passed. Can we Can we get an update on those, either resolutions or ordinance? Actually, it was an ordinance approving the general location of future roads in the area. Can we get a copy of that and a report from staff on exactly where we're at with
Absolutely.
the items that have been outlined here?
We met today and we talked about trying to incorporate some of the concerns, because she does have some valid points of consideration.
I just want to make sure my assumption would be if we're meeting next Monday, that by Wednesday or Thursday, whenever the agenda is due, that will be part of that report?
We will.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. And I'm going to jump in real quick here as well before I let Mr. Boyce take off here. At the end of the evening, we've got a workshop for shoreline permits and Horseshoe Lake Management Committee, and then with action to follow to authorize staff to advertise for new Horseshoe Lake Management Committee members. It's not so much for new members. Going through the process and the emails that we've received as of late from some of those that are on the committee and live on the lake, it's been brought to our attention that the committee hasn't been operating within the same fashion as the other committees. This is not punishment. This is just a way for us to get everything back into sync and to order as the other committees and boards are within the city. So I think there might be some issues outlined that this is punishment for some way or another, and it's not. I am highly encouraging all the members to apply for the position. We have 7 members that are sitting there now, and we're trying to get it down to 5, and then also back into, again, like I said, standards as the other committees and boards and commissions are. So just so council is aware of that, and we can discuss that more as we move into that workshop. Mr. West.
All right. First off, I wanted to mention, I've been reporting on it for months, but we do have a tentative agreement with clerical teamsters, and the item's on the agenda this evening. The HR committee looked at it. They gave it a new pass recommendation. Highlights include the clerical teamsters accepting a larger responsibility for health insurance premiums. It's very much consistent with the Public Works Teamsters contract that came through several months ago. I encourage everyone to give it due consideration and hope it will be passed. When you have a tentative agreement in place, both parties agreed to advocate for that tentative agreement, and I just want to make sure it's clear on the record. I'm recommending that City Council adopt that. Other than that, the police contract is still ongoing. There's some emails being traded, and we're still hoping to get to some sort of agreement. More on that when it becomes available. Other than that, we have. I did speak at the chamber meeting, I should mention, and just so everyone knows.
Very impressive, too.
Right. Well, I didn't know until the day before there was a cancellation, so I agreed to go forward and maybe solicit some folks for the for and against committee related to the levy lid lift ballot measure, but apparently have been unsuccessful. We don't have any applications as of yet, so if anyone's interested, please consider that.
We've received one. I think, I don't know
Did
when.
we receive one?
When did it come in? Did it just come in today? It just came in today.
Okay.
Yes, it's Mr. Robert Ray has applied for the 4 committee. So we have one.
We have one. That's progress. Great. And I also wanted to mention, we hadn't finalized the numbers, and I spoke to the chamber, and the next day, some changes were made to the numbers. So I wanted to mention them tonight before we get to the item, so you understand. Originally, we were talking about a larger increase in the first year to pay for 2 officers and a administrative sergeant. We sought some expertise in the area, and someone pointed out that we're not going to be hiring officers day one on January 1st. It's a long process to hire police officers. There's a lot of competition. It could easily take up to 6 months, if not longer. So what we did was we decided to have the levy lid lift take effect 2020 at a little bit lower amount, and then just go with the 1% increases thereafter as allowed by law. Also, we took into account the fact that gambling tax revenue has gone away. As City Council knows, we've been using that to purchase equipment for the police department as a whole. So we did include some additional funds to help make up for that. It doesn't cover the entire loss, but it would help pay for some of the larger items like patrol cruisers, radios, and computers, so some of the larger expenses. So that's worked into the numbers. The way that looks on a home that's valued $275,000, the increase would be $194.32 per year. Every year that would go up 1%. The following year, $196, $198 in 2022, $200 in 2023. So it's a little bit different than what we talked about before, a little bit different than what the Finance Committee looked at. But we'd like the City Council to consider this, and if you have questions, I'll sure try to answer those for you.
All right. Questions for Mr. Boyce at this time? All right.
And I better say, Hot Summer Nights is still happening.
Oh, gosh.
Right.
Tracy's not here, please.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a lot quieter this evening.
Right, so it's
yeah.
Ralph reps the internet, and the theme is hot rods. So
It's going to be a car show.
there's going to be a car show.
That was last week.
Was that
It was last, yeah.
Oh, that's 7/12, I'm sorry.
Oh.
7/19, we have Hotel Transylvania 3.
Oh, yes.
Themes Carnival Beach.
Is the pirate coming this week?
I believe so.
I think there's going to be a pirate on the lake, everybody. Let's do this. All right. So excited.
I've heard
Oh, yes.
several people have been attending it, and it seems like it's really going over well this year.
Absolutely.
Last week was amazing, the amount of people that were there.
Is that military night?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it was.
So I hope to see everyone there on Friday. And come with $5 in hand for
Yes, for hot
the VFW.
dogs.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's not forget that. Are those selling, by the way?
Oh, they are. They're good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. How many people do you think were there last week?
Well, we sold 70 hot dogs. There was easily, I'm sure that there must have been close to 100 people that were sitting
awesome.
in front of the,
Good.
getting ready for the movie when we closed things up.
All right. Good. All right. Sorry, Mr. Boyce, I jumped in again.
No, that's great.
Sorry.
That's all I got.
That's all. Questions for Mr. Boyce? All right. Thank you, Mr. Boyce. Moving on to consent items.
Move to approve consent items as presented.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Humberg, seconded by Councilmember Chapman. Will the clerk please take the vote?
Councilmember Hubbard.
Aye.
Councilmember Benjamin.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Consent items have passed. I'd just like to recognize Mrs. Hartman this evening. Thank you for being here. I know that's not normally your evening to work, but thank you to you and Mrs. Cash as well for setting up and staying this evening. Appreciate it.
We appreciate you.
All right, moving on to action items. Before I get cut off and I can't discuss anymore, staff has approached me at break and asked that when you get to action item N as in Nancy, Nora, ordinance number 1436, if council would pull that item and refer it to the August 5th meeting. Did I get that right? Nailed it. All right, moving on to action items. Action item I, resolution number 711 to authorize a ballot position of the proposition of the November 5th, 2019 general election relating to a levy lid lift to fund police officers and equipment.
Move to adopt resolution number 711.
I'll second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Rounds. Councilmember Fredericks.
I appreciate Sergeant Keller's testimony this evening. Look forward to getting this on the ballot. I think the help of the police officers and the guild will help us get this over the finish line, and I think that's what it will take. So I appreciate the partnership between council, staff, and the police officers. So thank you.
Councilmember Rounds.
No comment.
Further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please take the vote on action item I, resolution 711.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Hubbard.
Aye.
Councilmember Benjamin.
Aye.
Action item I has passed. Moving on to action item J, appoint of for and against committees for November 5th, 2019 levy lid lift. Like I said earlier, I've had one application, but I believe we are extending the deadline. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I can't remember.
Yeah, we need to do our best to get someone, but there are timelines where information has to be submitted, so the sooner the better if anyone's interested.
Can I ask a parliamentary question?
Fire away.
So if we don't have anybody, how are we appointing for and against if we have received just tonight or just today, we've received the for, but we haven't received the against? So how can the council appoint people that haven't applied yet?
Well, if we have a special meeting and we're able to advertise it beforehand, correct, we could do an appointment on the 22nd.
Yes.
Other than that, we would have to hit our first meeting in August.
So can I make a motion to extend this to the first meeting in August? Or table it and move it to the first meeting in August?
Does that go past our timeline?
I think that would
The
be
5th?
acceptable.
I think we have to have it up there by the next morning, correct?
Right, so the 6th.
The 6th is the cutoff.
Let's do it.
We can do the 5th, or we can bring it back at the special meeting. Whatever. Motion on the floor to move it to the 5th.
Yes.
Okay.
There is no motion on the floor.
Oh.
I just asked the parliamentary.
Oh,
question.
yeah.
I
Oh,
asked
she
you.
jumped in.
Did she make a motion?
Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay.
Please stand down, Mr. Frederick.
Okay.
Motion on the floor to make action item J referred to the August 5th meeting by Councilmember Humber and seconded by Councilmember Rounds. Councilmember Humber.
We just need to make sure that we have committee members to appoint for and against. So please, if you're interested, let us know.
Councilmember Rounds.
Agreed.
Further discussion? Will the clerk please take the vote?
Councilmember Hubbard.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Benjamin.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
All right, action item J has been tabled and will be brought back forward August 5th. Moving to action item K, authorize mayor to sign collective bargaining agreement with Teamsters 58 Clerical Division for 2019 to 2021.
Move to adopt the collective bargaining agreement with Teamsters 58 Clerical Division.
I'll second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Rounds. Councilmember Fredericks.
I have no discussion on this item.
Councilmember Rounds.
I think we've got a pretty good deal going, so that's about all I have to say also.
Further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please take the vote on action item K?
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Benjamin.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Humbert.
Aye.
Action item K has passed. Moving on to action item L, authorize mayor to sign maintenance permit with Washington State Department of Transportation for maintenance at exit 21/landscaping triangle.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Oh, moved by Councilmember Humbert, second by Councilmember Chapman. Councilmember Humbert.
Just need to make sure that our triangle is kept up and looks good.
Councilmember Chapman.
I concur.
Further discussion?
And this is known as Gilligan's Island?
Yes.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. I don't believe this went to the finance committee, but that's where it says that it was at. If it did, I must have been asleep at the time.
Did not.
Okay.
I believe it went to the Public Works Committee.
That sounds about right. Okay, just correction for
Where it says public works.
on the agenda summary sheet, 165.
Anything else? Okay. Will the clerk please take the vote on action item L?
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Humbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Benjamin.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
All right, action item L has passed. Moving on to action item M, ordinance number 1433, adopting the 2019 comprehensive plan update, final reading.
Move to adopt ordinance number 1433.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Humbert. Councilmember Fredericks.
No, this is the final reading, and just to note that it looks like the Washington State Department of Commerce, the 60-day comment period expired on the 14th, and we received no additional comments, so I think this is just the final action to get this item completed.
Councilmember Humbert.
I agree.
Further discussion? Will clerk please take the vote on ordinance number 1433?
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Humbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Benjamin.
Aye.
Motion has passed. Moving on to action item N, ordinance number 1436, Woodland Corporate Center Binding Site Plan Revision 2, final reading.
I'd like to refer action item, or not refer, I'd like to postpone action item N to the August 5th meeting.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, second by Councilmember Humbert to postpone action item N to the August 5th meeting. Councilmember Fredericks.
No discussion.
Councilmember Humbert.
No discussion.
Further discussion? Will the clerk please take the vote on ordinance number 1433, moving it to August 5th?
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Benjamin.
Aye.
Councilmember Humbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
All right, action item N has been postponed to August 5th. The time is now 8:19. Council is moving into a workshop. First item on the agenda, shoreline permits and fees for Horseshoe Lake properties. Mr. Goddard, are you presenting a presentation this evening? Or are you just up for questions?
Just up for questions.
Up for questions, all right. On the 7/8/2019 Finance Committee recommendation to continue with process for code enforcement on Horseshoe Lake and not move forward a fee holiday or lake-wide shoreline plan as presented by Mr. Goddard at the meeting of 7/8 and refer to a workshop with council on 7/15 and hear a report from staff on city shoreline projects and status. Does anyone have any questions? It was asked that this be brought back forward. Mr. Goddard did leave some options on the table at the last meeting. I believe that they were discussed at the Finance Committee level. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
I guess I can speak on this.
Okay.
I think it was requested that that committee take a look at this item. We did. We felt that it was important to bring this back because we had many folks speak about it and wanted to show what this committee's recommendation was. And so, however, it's here. We can discuss it, or we can keep the recommendation. We can discuss the other items, or do whatever is suggested. But that's the committee made the recommendation. It is available on the summary statement, and that was an attempt to close the loop, so to speak.
Okay. Mr. Goddard.
Sorry, I have to fess up. I panicked because I was texting the applicant for item N, telling them that it was postponed without opposition, and so you caught me with my pants down. Sorry.
Oh God!
This was them sitting right here, wasn't it?
No.
No.
Nope. Those were the owners of the property by the CC Street Bridge that had done
and
the
that's
comp
what I
plan.
thought we were talking. I thought we were talking about the CC Street.
No.
No, I know. I thought we were. Never mind. Anyway.
So the question had come up about the potential impacts of a fee holiday, and I had made a quick presentation to the Finance Committee that I identified potentially 23 properties that might be interested in applying for a shoreline permit if a fee holiday was issued or was offered. A shoreline permit will cost about potentially $5,000 per applicant, which means 23 would be about $115,000 worth of fee revenue. But as in your agenda memo, I point out that that's not lost revenue. It shouldn't be thought of as lost revenue because people who are not going to apply for a permit, the fact that they get permits for free doesn't mean the city would lose that revenue. What it actually means is that 23 permits coming in the door represents an amount of work for staff that we would not be paid for, which means that it creates a workload without the corresponding revenue, as opposed to tomorrow the city will not have a $115,000 hole in its budget if you were to offer a fee holiday. So I wanted to clarify that they're not quite the same thing, lost revenue versus extra work that doesn't have money attached to it. The other option was I threw out some numbers in the report about how much time and staff effort it would take to potentially do a lake-wide management plan, and that was about $36,000. And so another way to approach the effort was to do it that way. Took it to the Finance Committee, and the Finance Committee felt that neither one of those were viable options, and that theoretically the staff should just continue to do code enforcement as issues arise.
Sorry, I've got a question. How does, it's been said that the shoreline, or the master plan, what was it called again? Sorry.
A lake-wide management plan?
Lake-wide management plan. Ms. Coleman has stated that without that, there's additional funding that we could be grabbing for the lake. But without that management plan, we can't apply for that funding.
That is true. So we could go after like restoration programs or additional grant opportunities. But again, it's kind of the same situation. Just because we don't have access to it now, not having access to it in the future isn't necessarily a loss.
Has, because the management, the master plan, would that burden residents that live on the lake?
Not necessarily. It depends upon the plan.
But who works on the plan? Is it?
Well,
is it a collaborative? Is it a partnership? Is it, or is it a?
It could be
another one of the shoreline master plan that said we just get it and throw it out there to everybody and say this is what we live by now.
So the numbers that I had written up, basically I estimated that it would probably take about a third of my time just to do public outreach and education, and see if people are interested. But ultimately, one of the points that was brought up by the Finance Committee, and that is we could spend all of this money and nobody could end up benefiting from it or wanting to participate in the management plan, and then it would be money down the drain, and there's no guarantee that it would reap any benefits.
Okay.
And if we got a $10,000 grant, it's not a good use of $36,000 of our funds to get less money than we invested.
Right. Okay. Further questions on the topic or discussion? Mrs. Rounds?
Do we know, are they the only ones that you could not find a permit for?
No, there are, the only group or the only property that I've actually done the research for is the Kramers, and also the city, Horseshoe Lake Park itself. So there is no record of certain structures at Horseshoe Lake Park, but there is historical data to show that some of the park was constructed prior to adoption of the shoreline program. So I haven't...
They could have put that in possibly before that came about.
Some of it could have been, yes.
So the city is following its own rules. I mean, we can't ask folks to follow the rules. I mean, the city's not playing by the rules. I'm assuming the assumption is that we are following those rules.
Yes. In some we are, and in the past, some we have not. So we are working on a shoreline permit that would bring the entire park up to current code.
Can you explain some of the process that Ms. Coleman's got some projects going on down there, and that's one of the things that she wasn't aware she needed to do, then we brought that to her attention.
Sure. So, for example, the way the shoreline program works is the lowest level of permit review is called a shoreline exemption letter, and the shoreline program has certain activities that you can do without a permit if it meets the shoreline code. And they did some trenching to install some electrical utility boxes, and the amount of value of that work was less than the $7,000 threshold. And the way the work occurs is they do a trench, they stick the pipe in there, and they replace it so it is returned to its original state after the pipe has been installed. So that qualified for a shoreline exemption, meaning that Public Works, they showed me what they were going to do. I wrote a letter that said, yes, that is exempt from the shoreline program. You do not need a permit for it. They went out and did the work, and that work is done. There is other activity that appears to have been done without a shoreline permit. So, for example, the skateboard park is a large structure that appears to have been installed without a shoreline permit. Now, to get a shoreline permit at the time, what they would have had to do is have approved plans. They would have had to install erosion control so that there's no erosion into the lake, and there are some other steps that they would have had to take. But the fact that it is already there means that they can get a permit for it, because we are unlikely to have new erosion control or erosion problems in the lake because it is an existing structure and they're not doing more construction. So that's an example of something they did without a permit and something that they can do and did properly without a permit.
Is the city actively pursuing folks that have not, that might have violated the process and didn't have a permit?
So there are 3 current code enforcement cases open on Horseshoe Lake. One of them is in Clark County, and 2 of them are in the Cowlitz County side of the lake within city jurisdiction. There is also a active permit which is in monitoring, and that's Mr. Dunlap's property, where he is doing vegetation monitoring from when he did his subdivision. But it looks like it is currently consistent with the shoreline program, and there's no code enforcement case open on it or warranted.
That was perfect.
Did anyone try to contact Mr. Hasbrook to find out if he'd gotten a permit and it just by chance got lost through the city?
No, I have not. And part of what I've said all along here, and that is the city, I have not made any effort to actively go out and find violations, because in a sense, as soon as I start doing that research, then I wouldn't have the deniability, because right now I can say, if they want to say they are in compliance and they have the proof, then I have no reason to disagree with them. And since there are no cases pending, there's no reason for me to disbelieve that they're in violation.
Or ask, right?
Yeah.
I think Mr. Frederick's question was unanswered. That's why we were giggling.
Okay.
Are you aware of any or are we actively seeking code enforcement with any properties on the lake at this point? Except, in addition to what you've already listed with the two?
No.
Okay. So we're not out there knocking on doors asking to take looks
No.
in backyards? And
What would initiate if I had done something 5 years ago? What would initiate that? Would it be
A formal complaint.
okay?
So if someone said that you did this 5 years ago and haven't done anything about it and it's still a violation, then, and they write it out, or they call it in and ask for a complaint to be opened. then
Ms.
I-
Parson is not on a boat circling the lake looking.
She is not.
Actively looking. I just want to make sure that we clear all this up.
Yeah.
This is someone who is calling us and us not calling them.
That is correct.
Okay.
To the point of I don't even do
Right.
research.
That was the purpose of me
Yeah.
asking the question, is to make sure that
Sorry.
folks are aware that we're not actively getting out on the boat,
Yes.
searching for code enforcement violations on the master shore.
Now that you say it like that, it seems obvious, but yeah, it has to be more obvious for me, because I will complicate it.
So really, if you get a neighbor that's unhappy with you,
Yes.
you could be in trouble.
I hope everyone on the lake is able to get along.
No good deed goes unpunished.
No, it doesn't. And I think that's why we're talking about this, is because of a phone call.
And I also don't want it to appear that I assume that there are a bunch of violations out there, because they may all have documentation, and
Okay.
there's no reason to think otherwise.
Gotcha. So at this time, I don't know, are we waiting for action from council on any of this, or this was a close the loop, as Mr. Frederick has stated, to have this conversation on where we are and expectations of staff policy-wise, right? Is that?
I suppose nothing would prevent a council member from disagreeing with the finance committee's recommendation,
Right.
and saying, hey, I'd like to make a motion to come up with a shoreline plan or a fee holiday. So nothing prevents, or C.
But is there currently anything coming August 5th for
There
any
is
action, or this is just?
there is no staff
this is
action
what
or
was asked from
request.
council? Okay.
And silence would assume then adoption of the finance committee's recommendation. Finance committee and general government. In this case, general government, there's not a lot of money involved here, with the exception of the analysis that was completed on the fee holiday and the costs associated with the shoreline plan. So I guess that would be finance.
So what I'm hearing is that we're not changing anything at this point, and we only act if there is a formal complaint, is what I've heard. Okay, I think that's fair. Thank you.
You know, there could be 23 possible, but that doesn't mean that there is going to be 23
Right.
possible if we do a fee holiday.
Mhm.
So.
We're creating work for
if
issues that
20
are,
If 23 people come forward and want it.
right.
But if they don't, then you may only have 2 or 3.
So-
And so the workload's not going to be. Right.
So you're suggesting there may be one property owner that is out there, out of those 23, that say, hey, I know I did something I wasn't
No,
supposed to, and I
no.
want to correct it now.
No, I'm saying that not all 23 will possibly come forward.
Right.
You may have 2 or 3 or 5, but that's not 23. And so I'm
Okay.
saying the workload could quite possibly not be as big as what we're looking at.
Is it possible to only have, how does this play into the fact that if you're offering a fee holiday for some and not for others, is there another permit that costs the same, say $5,000 to do something with their property in the middle of Woodland somewhere, not on the shoreline? And would the expectation then be that, could I make a legal case that you've offered a fee holiday for someone who lived on the lake, but here I am having an issue with my property, I'd like to create a permit, and I want a fee holiday as well? It seems to me that it's not equal application of ordinances that have been passed already by the council, and it's established law, I would say. Mr. Randolph?
Mr. Randolph, you're up.
I don't know. I mean, it's an issue of enforcement, but I don't know I would think no, but I would have to do the research to find out whether you create a problem if you do a fee waiver in some area, but not in some other. If you want me to do the research, I'd like to do it.
But the fee holiday has to do with the shoreline, correct? So unless you're living on a shoreline, it doesn't affect you. If you're living on a shoreline, then it will. So if I live on Park Avenue and I want to do something and my permit's $5,000, I can't go back and say, but they got it because I'm not on a shoreline. Am I correct? Am I understanding this right?
So what my advice would be is that if you're going to pursue it, that you would couch it in terms of there is a public benefit to environmental protection of a shoreline. Therefore, that public benefit should have a dollar attached to it, a dollar figure attached to it. Therefore, if someone is doing something that's good for the public, they should be compensated for it. As opposed to if you're going to build a house and someone got a free shoreline permit, but I have to pay for my building permit, there's difference because the benefit of your house construction is a financial gain to you. There's no public benefit to having an additional house on your lot.
Okay, that makes sense.
So you might be able to structure it that way. Whether it's legal would be a question he would still have to look into.
Well, I think that raises the issue with, okay, I'm going to use your example as a like, if I could make the argument if I was going to put in affordable housing, that I am creating a benefit, maybe not an environmental one, but I'm creating a benefit to society by doing this. All I'm saying is I think at some point we have to be careful because I think we end up picking winners and losers in this, and I think we need to be careful with that, but I get it. I get both sides. So.
Could we have the attorney do some research
Absolutely.
And move this into the July 22nd meeting?
For further discussion on the 22nd?
Yes.
And basically the question is that can you waive permits in connection with the shoreline?
The fees, not permits.
The fees.
Fees.
Can you waive the fees in connection with the Shoreline Management Act? Would that create problems if you did not waive fees in other areas of the town?
City.
Let's say transportation impact fee. I'm building Dutch Brothers, and I'm going to have to pay $100,000 for transportation impact fees. Are we waiving all fees, and or is there an argument for that to say I don't want to pay the $100,000 because you're waiving over the $5,000 over there?
Constitutional limitation
Right.
to the town from waiving fees in one area and not in the other, even though they can articulate a reason why it applies in terms of shoreline management, but elsewhere it does not.
Yes.
Is that what you're looking for?
Yes. Mr. Goddard?
Melissa also pointed out that a shoreline jurisdiction includes the Lewis River. So it could be a shoreline fee holiday, meaning that somebody on the Lewis River could also apply for a shoreline permit.
How does that affect when you're building 35 potential townhomes on the Lewis River shoreline?
So you're talking future development as opposed to,
Does that not play into this conversation, though? If they were going to start next week?
potentially could, yes, absolutely could.
I guess it would depend on what the term of the fee waiver would be. Is it, for a week? Is it for 6 months?
And what fees are we actually waiving? Because when you look at those 35 townhomes, and then you move a little bit further west, and now they're putting in a business complex as well, is that included, is that still part of the shoreline?
If it requires a shoreline permit, then it could potentially, which is, I think, part of the reason why the recommendation was not to go down this route. There are a lot of scenarios, and it could create a lot of workload that we don't necessarily anticipate right now.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Boyce.
Councilmember Rounds, were you talking about a workshop on the 22nd?
Is that what it is on the 22nd, is a workshop?
There's action. It's the tip right now. It's the transportation impact. So there'll be a public hearing at this point, and then action by council, potential action by council on what we moved this evening, which was action item H.
So we could do a workshop or action, or both.
I don't know, I'm just not ready to make a decision unless
Well.
And I hate to keep the people waiting,
No.
and keep the city waiting, but.
There's really, that's what I was trying to get at the beginning. There's no decision to be made at this point, right? We're going to just continue business as usual, which is take the phone call and respond. We're not doing anything. I think that was Finance Committee's direction. There's no action on this item at all. These are just the options that were brought forward to help mitigate the situation, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So unless and until City Council tells us to do something differently, we'll proceed with code enforcement on specific violations that we have complaints on. Other than that, we're not going to seek out, a lake-wide plan.
Basically, nothing changes, and we're just dealing with the 3 that were mentioned. Is that right? Mr. Goddard, you have 3 on the table right now? And that's all. We're not actively seeking anything or creating a new program.
I don't know, how do you feel, Susan?
I kind of agree with you. I'm not ready to vote on this. And I've read this a half a dozen times since I got it, and I'm not real comfortable with it. Maybe, can I come talk to you?
So,
I did.
don't interrupt you.
No, I'm done.
Okay. So we're not doing anything tonight unless
Correct.
a motion is made to either refer to have the city attorney look at something, or my understanding is this is basically information only, but if the council member wants to make a motion and second and have discussion on providing direction to staff, that motion would be appropriate now. Otherwise, you're going to continue with your code enforcement.
Correct.
A motion could also be made to refer this to the next meeting for an additional workshop and further discussion if we wanted to.
Right, and if the council's going to take action, we'll have to wait until we close the workshop. But yeah, at that point, council
Okay.
can make any of those decisions.
But hearing nothing means you're going to continue with code enforcement as is outlined here.
Correct.
Okay.
Or shall we take it to workshop and then possibly make a decision next week?
I think what I heard from Mr. Boyce, it would be appropriate after we close out the workshop,
Right.
that a motion could be made by any member of this
Right.
council for anything. It just has to be done outside of the workshop.
Right.
I did see a hand in the back. I would ask council at this time if they would like to suspend the rules and allow testimony during the workshop at this time.
I'm okay.
No. I need a motion, though, to suspend the rules.
I make a motion.
Suspend the rules.
Go ahead, Susan, I'll second.
Okay. Move to suspend the rules and have our person testimony come forward.
I'll second.
Motion on the floor to suspend the rules by Councilmember Humberg, seconded by Councilmember Rounds. Will the clerk please take the vote?
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Humbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Benjamin.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
No.
All right. Does the motion fail?
Supermajority.
Oh, okay. Motion has failed. Moving on. Any further discussion on shoreline permits and fees for what's been discussed already? Okay. Moving on to the second item that's on there for workshop, Horseshoe Lake Management Committee, which is Governor the Woodland Municipal Code 2.80. This also went to the General Government Committee for consideration. Through these conversations over the last couple months, as stated earlier in the meeting, we've had some inconsistencies the way that the Horseshoe Lake Management Committee has been operating compared to the other committees and boards. So this is just a way to clean this up and make sure that we're all moving down the tracks in the same fashion. As you can see, it looks like we're calling it a reboot of the committee.
Motion carries. Speak.
Oh, did you get it wrong?
Yeah, it requires four members in support. I thought there was a second no, so Mr.
Oh.
I think it's Mr. Perry?
Yes, Mr. Perry.
I thought someone said no. I thought it was 3-2.
No, just you.
So, yeah, Mr. Perry.
Mr. Perry, you can step forward. Yeah, step forward, please. Just speak.
5 minutes.
You can have 5 minutes.
I don't have anything to speak on this.
No.
What I was going to speak about a minute ago was how to find out whether permits were required.
Were we not, are you talking?
I have nothing to say about your motion to get a new lake. Thank you.
Okay. What we would do is we would advertise like we do normally. We're looking for expiring terms so we can get rotation in there. Currently, right now, we have 7 members, is that correct, that are showing up? So this would take it down to 5 as indicated by council, I think back in 2016 or 17 as requested. So we're just not operating that way. So we would collect, and hopefully it would be the members that are serving now would apply, and we would put them on expiring terms and put them through the rotation like we do, similar to Planning Commission, Park Board, what have you. So, and it appears that the General Government Committee gave some language and put in some timelines for discussion there. So, I'll open up the floor for discussion, if any. Yes, Mr. Benjamin.
So the committee would continue to operate until the end of the year, at which time things would be reorganized. Is that? Or
I believe that's, I'm trying to remember. Does that sound right? Yeah, it would be January 1st would start the new,
correct.
hopefully with the same people, but yeah, so they would continue operating now. We would collect the applications and put those out there and then start the official rotations January 1st. Starting them. So it looks like 2 members would have 2-year term and then 3 members would have a 4-year term. So they were staggered. All right.
We discussed this at the Finance Committee and General Government, and decided to strike the word "and administer" from C. That was just suggested a change. It should be staff administering the.
Could you use the microphone?
It should be staff that is initiating the administrating the integrated aquatic vegetation management plan. So we suggested that
we strike the word, 2 words, and administer from there. But I think that the general discussion was there any items that we wanted the Horseshoe Lake Committee to be looking at and making any additional recommendations to the full council? Were there additional items that we wanted that committee to look at? And if so, that would need to be discussed. We didn't have any further that we could think of, but I know Councilmember Humbert goes, and I didn't receive any feedback from anyone regarding.
This is pretty much what our board does, and I mean, this is, that's good.
So they're governed by they're overseen by the Public Works Department.
Right.
So if there was something that needed to be done, it would come through council through Public Works.
Public Works.
Okay. So master plan for the lake would come from Public Works to council and say, hey, we really need this, and we want to give it to the Lake Committee to conduct or complete. Basically like a task list, almost like for Plan Commission. Similar to that. That's what I mean. Yeah, okay. Any further discussion on, or questions or comments? Okay. The time is 8:51. We're back in regular session. Moving on to action item Q, authorize staff to advertise for new Horseshoe Lake Management Committee pursuant to Woodland Municipal Code 2.80 and bring ordinance for amendment. Woodland Municipal Code 2.80 to August 5th, 2019 council meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Humberg, second by Councilmember Benjamin. Councilmember Humberg.
No comment.
Councilmember Benjamin. No comment. Further discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk please take the vote on action item Q?
Councilmember Benjamin.
Aye.
Councilmember Frederick.
Aye.
Councilmember Hubbard.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Action item Q has passed. Chair is looking for a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Humberg, second by Councilmember Chapman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I can't get my time. 8:52.